meets accessibility requirements on its own.
Is that correct, Doug?
And so that's where I would be, you know, my interests are exactly aligned with yours, but I would be really challenged by a condition of occupancy. Have some unquantified
but my point is we're getting half of this plan, okay? And yet we should be protecting the future residents of that area to make sure that they have access off 75th Street and that. So I guess I'll take it that we have your word that you will make sure if the commercial development doesn't come in, that will be decent roads, I guess. Is that fair, Doug?
There's two aspects to that. There's going to be major construction that they'll be undergoing, and so there'll be some time for the commercial to get its legs. But there's property maintenance provisions too, that if there's a lag time that the commercial isn't done or hasn't commenced, then the city can force them to fix their parking lot.
Well, and candidly, with the reciprocal
access would be a part of that. Is that correct?
With the reciprocal easements, as a stakeholder in that, I'll actually have self-help provisions to go fix the road and charge them back for their half. So that's actually part of those reciprocal agreements. Always have maintenance provisions, and they'll be the maintenance owner since it's on their property. But there's usually, I haven't looked at the documents recently, but there's self-help provisions. If they don't do their job, I can go on their property, fix it for them, and then charge them back for their share.
Very fine. I appreciate your answers. I'm very satisfied with your answers on that. Commissioner Peterson.
This is actually for staff. In your recommendations, there was a point about number 7, traffic signalization for this project will be per the terms of developer's agreement approved by the governing body on December 9th. I have no idea what that is. What is it?
I think the easiest way is explain it to sit there willing to pay for a signal if it's required. Right now, the merits just don't quite meet that signalization.
Okay.
So we're going to look at a real world condition. They're going to do counts once it's opened. If it's merited, then they'll put the signal in. If it's not, that money is earmarked to go elsewhere into the development fund, whether it be signalization improvements at 75th and Quivira. So it's all been kind of taken care of.
And so that's not a signal at the Quivira entrance or the 75th Street, it's and or if?
It's kind of in flux, to be honest with you, because it's not known. The big thing with signalization is that they cost money, and we know that money's been put up by the developer.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? If not, although we're not required to by any way, shape, or form to allow public comments, we'll allow a few public comments, and I'll read this before so you understand how we accept these. And that is, your comments are limited to only the matter under consideration. We kindly ask that your comments be concise, that you're respectful to all parties. If your comments are the same as previous speakers, then please be brief. We have not established a time limit, and we prefer not to. If you are not making any specific point or are not concise, we will ask you to speed it up and eventually may ask that you stop. So if anybody from the audience cares to comment on this matter, please come forward and state your name and address. And also, I believe there's a sheet up there for you to sign in on.
Okay, I'll sign it. Thank you very much. Tracy Thomas, 13022 West 76th Terrace in Seven Hills. I'm Kathy's neighbor, and I'm about half a mile from Westbrooke. Whatever. So thank you very much. The taxpayers are subsidizing this, so we want this to succeed, and I think you've done a very good job, Mr. Pomeranke. I'm here to ask for more handicap spaces. There's only 10, which might not even accommodate sprained ankles for your pickleball court. I'm a big advocate since I'm disabled, so I'd like to see that. And the other thing I'd like to suggest is that you consider a new and better name that is not about the past. Westbrooke, I wore this hat that says, make Westbrooke great again. Well, it never was great. It was a failed project 32 years ago, and Paul Chaffee, who I adored as our planning commissioner, told me so. He said they came in from Texas, they had the money, they met the guidelines, And he said, and then they wanted this, they parked this 2-duck pond right by the street and the
Excuse
berms.
me, Tracy, just a second. You realize you're addressing the commission up here.
Yes, thank you very much. So, it's important for success to name your project, something that distinguishes it and moves into the future. There, adjacent to it, there is a Class C apartment called Westbrooke Glen that's been there for 10 years. They're the ones that put up the illegal signs on the weekends when the city can't quite catch them that say free first month's rent and free washer dryer. We don't want the public to think that Westbrook Green is Westbrook Glen. That's, when you're searching, that would be hard to distinguish. Now is the time to consider a new name, just like Kevin Tupasing was going to call his thing downtown Stag whatever, but no one could keep all the stags straight, so he just renamed it before he launches his marketing as 6016. That was really smart, to live into the future and not have your past illegally parked in your future. So I would ask that this developer is very quality, wants to do great things, and now's the time to rebrand and pick something that, because the neighbors are concerned about with having no retail for maybe 4 years, that this is just going to be old and more part of the failure. So thank you for considering.
Hi there, my name is Ryan Sargent. I live at 11860 West 83rd Terrace. I live at the Waterside Apartments, which is a roughly 480 unit apartment complex on Quivira Road, less than 10 blocks away from this development. We have parking issues down there. It's horrible. 6 o'clock is usually not the best time to roll through in the evening because people are still getting home. 8 o'clock is when we can't find parking. Both my wife and I have a vehicle. We have 2 kids, so it's just the 2 of us in our apartment that drive. But I've driven through there and had to park on the complete opposite side of the apartment complex. And then my wife has not been able to find parking and has had to wait around for half an hour for somebody to leave because people are visiting. So anybody who can afford apartments like this tend to be social, have friends. You're going to go to your nicest friend's apartment to hang out. More parking is better. The other issue is the access on this. Waterside has 83rd and 81st Road access. We have 2 access drives off 83rd, and then 83rd is lit at the intersection of Quivira. And 81st, we have 1 access point there, and 81st is lit at Quivira. So you have 2 lit intersections plus the main entrance from Quivira into the apartment complex. And I will still get boxed into the apartment complex, not being able to turn onto 83rd in the mornings, depending on what time I leave for work. So looking at this having 1 entrance and exit from Quivira seems to be a poor design. I think the light's going to be an immediate need, and I do think that having that secondary access improved and ready to go would be beneficial because I don't know anybody who's going to avoid taking the street early so that they can sit and wait at the light. Thank you.
Then we're in commission discussion. Commissioner Beanoff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think that the apartment plans certainly are a nice job. I know we need to stay limited to this development, but I do have concerns and interest in commercial being developed there as well, and share some of the same parking concerns that have been addressed. The cross parking certainly gives some comfort in that. However, in the evenings when parking might be a premium if there are several restaurants there, it also tend to be a problem with the apartments. But have confidence that the developer has done their homework on their history. It did seem to me that 6 o'clock drive-through was a bit early to be checking parking, but that maybe a little later in the evening and the weekends would be appropriate as well. Not sure what else we can do with the parking situation, but sure, I do have some concerns about that.
Actually, the way they answered the question for myself, the way they answered the question on the parking, I'm not sure about what I think they're absolutely correct on what they're doing. But my fear, and I think Commissioner Peterson brought that point up too, is we put commercial in there and all of a sudden now somebody says, well, we don't have quite enough parking. And then we get a bleed over into either one. It's okay if it happens a little bit, but I guess the concern will be the commercial part of it when it comes in is there enough parking there? And I think Mr. Johnson will have to simply answer that fairly well. And I would hate to lose a restaurant because we didn't have enough space for parking. That would really probably make me get excited. I like the looks of the buildings, but I really don't have a lot of problem with it. Commissioner Nonick?
Yeah, I mean, my concern is the timing on the commercial development. I think, I don't know, who was it, system about 4 years, I'm sure that cannot be a real number. That is my concern. Kind of overflows of the parking a little bit, but I mean, this project's been being discussed now for, 2 years? Where can you give us a sense, a little bit more accurately on the timing of the commercial development? Because that's what's
Sure.
going to make a difference on this project.
Sure. So, absolutely. They're complementary. Of course, we're here tonight to consider the final plan for multifamily. And the reason is that the commercial portion is planned to take less time, obviously, to construct than the multifamily portion. And I think this is probably the best way to crystallize it, is that we've got a development agreement, as Mark referred to, with some very punitive components to it if the commercial doesn't develop as planned. And I think most importantly, the completion date for the bulk of the retail is the same completion date as the multifamily building. So it isn't 4 years out into the future. It is tied directly to that same date that we expect will coincide with the multifamily building.
Okay. Good.
Commissioner Peterson?
I really like how you unfortunately were handed a book that everybody half read, and then were required to do a plot twist. So I appreciate your efforts, and I'm glad you were able to work with staff. I do live not far from here and would love to see something happen quickly, but yet quality. I think you've got the steps there. My biggest concern is that I have a really bad memory. I have to take notes. And so when the commercial development comes in a more clear package, I hope that the initial bravado is at least attempted to create the whole package. I know that would be good for the apartments to fill up, as well as to utilize the commercial component. I know they're intertwined. I'm just hoping that staff will remind us what we agreed to or don't agree to tonight. That's my point, because I'm not going to remember. That's why it concerns me that we're looking at this in two different pieces. We all have revisionist history of memory and what we wanted to see. So we just want to set this up to be as successful for you as it is for the neighborhood and the city, so that it can be, that is our South Gateway, so to speak. And we'd like to have it be as exciting and interesting and a destination as much as we are trying in other parts of the city. So it's important, and thank you for your efforts.
Any further commission discussion? Hearing no further commission discussion, would someone please make a motion? Commissioner Commissioner Roth. And I think Commissioner Roth, I think we're better off to do this in two separate motions. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'll restart this here. Recommend we approve SP 082003 site plan for Westbrook Green Apartments in the 7300 to 7400 blocks of Quivira Road.
Is there a second? Commissioner Beanoff?
Second that.
Motion and a second for approval of SP 082003 site plan approval for Westbrook Green Apartments at 7300 to 7400 blocks of Quivira Road. Any further discussion? Commissioner Beanoff?
Just wanted to clarify, that's subject to staff recommendations and conditions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Somebody care to make a motion on the final site plan? Commissioner Peterson.
I move that we approve FP-06-20-03 final plat for the Westbrook Green Apartments at 7200 to 7300 blocks of Quivira Road per staff recommendations and council comment.
Is there a second? Commissioner Bradley.
I'd like to second that motion.
Any further discussion?
Question on the address? You said
made a
72 to
note.
73?
This says 72 to 7300 on our sheet here. It says 73 to 7400.
Can staff clarify for us on that? That's what we'll go with, 7300 to 7400.
Somewhere
There's a motion.
7200 and 7400 Quivira Road.
There's a motion and a second in front of us for approval of FP 062003. Any further discussion? If not, Tracy, you do not have the floor. Please sit down. We're in the middle of a commission meeting and you do not have the floor and you will not get the floor. So please sit down. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Z012002 and pre-plat 032002 Legacy Crossing at the 7500 block of Clare Road, rezoning and preliminary plat. Mark?
Good evening, Mark Zillstorf, City Planning staff. Tonight we're here to talk about Legacy Crossing, which is a request for rezoning and a preliminary plat for a new single-family residential subdivision in the 7500 block of Clare Road on approximately 41.4 acres. As you can see on this map here, it's way out in the southwest corner of Shawnee. This is an aerial of the subject property. The overall property that it sets on is actually a 58-acre parcel that, I don't know if I can do this on here. Basically, it incorporates all of this piece, this large piece, and then all the way over here with this home site to the east. So the subject property is part of a larger 58-acre unplatted parcel that is currently zoned agricultural. The property is developed as a single-family home and outbuildings located on the east side with access to Gleason Road. This subject site that is subject for rezoning and preliminary plat contains 41.4 acres and consists of undeveloped agricultural pasture and a small pond. As far as the surrounding zoning goes, Clare Road is adjacent to the rest of the subject site. Properties west of Clare Road are zoned RS Residential Suburban,
and contains single-family homes within the existing and future phases of Preserve of Clear Creek subdivision. Properties to the north, to the east, and to the south of the site are zoned AG agricultural and contain single-family homes on large unplatted parcels with frontage to either 71st Street to the north, Gleason Road to the east, or 79th Street to the south. Properties to the northwest are zoned agricultural and contain single-family homes on smaller lots within the Virginia Village subdivision. As far as the future land use guide, which is the one that's predominantly yellow up on their screen, city's future land use map within the comprehensive plan designates the subject site as appropriate for low-density residential uses. Low-density residential uses are defined in the comprehensive plan as between 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. The preliminary plat for this project provides a gross density of 3.1 dwelling units per acre, which is within the low-density residential range. The lots provided in this preliminary plat meet or exceed the minimum size requirements of the planned single-family zoning district, and public sewers and other utilities are available to serve the area or will be extended to serve the area. The rezoning and the preliminary plat are in general conformance with the plan. As far as surrounding impact, the character of the area will change from the expanse of pasture ground that exists today. However, the rezoning itself should have little, if any, detrimental effect upon the surrounding properties. The city has anticipated low-density residential development for this entire area. The proposed development provides a single-family residential subdivision with an overall density of 3.1 dwelling units per acre, which is in the middle of what the comprehensive plan considers as appropriate for low density. Furthermore, the completion of 2 arterial street segments, being Clare Road to the west and 75th Street to the north, adjacent to the subdivision, helps to further the street network in the area in accordance with the circulation plan for the comprehensive plan. Traffic will increase with this development. However, according to a traffic impact study prepared for the project, the street network adjacent to the proposed development is currently under capacity, and the additional traffic generated by the development will have little impact on roadway level of service as a result. Denial of the request would not appear to benefit the health and welfare of the community. The planned single-family zoning district has not commonly been used west of K7 Highway in the past. However, staff believes that this proposal is appropriate for the area given the availability of public sewers coupled with newer development trends in lot size and housing design, and the city's desire to be more open to increased densities within the residential developments. Several residential subdivisions throughout Shawnee are zoned planned single-family and have not created adverse impacts on the community. Gray Oaks, Crimson Ridge, Monticello Farms, Wedgewood, Fairway Hills, and Kenneth Estates are all single-family residential subdivisions that are zoned planned single-family. The proposed architecture of the homes, while not as common in this area as they are in other areas of the country, such as Texas and Oklahoma, provide a unique and desirable option for homeowners not otherwise found in the region. This is an image of the preliminary plat. The preliminary plat includes 126 lots and 10 tracts on 41.4 acres. The applicant has indicated they intend to develop this subdivision in a single phase. As far as access is concerned, primary access to the subdivision will be from Clare Road along the west side of the property. The applicant will be finishing the construction of the east half of Clare Road adjacent to the west subdivision boundary, as well as the full width of 75th Street along the entire north subdivision boundary as part of the public improvements associated with this project. There will be no direct residential lot access to Clare Road nor 75th Street. All lot access will be from local residential streets from within the subdivision. Street stubs are provided to the east and to the south to allow the street network to be extended in the future when these adjacent properties are developed. The proposed lot layout, points of access, and the street network for this development are acceptable for circulation and public safety purposes. All bulk requirements on the preliminary plat have been satisfied. Like I said earlier, the plat contains 126 residential lots. These lots range in size from 7,793 square feet to 12,390 square feet. exceeding the minimum lot size of 6,600 square feet. Lot widths range from 60 feet to 87 feet. And in accordance with the ordinance, no more than 1/3 of the lots can be between 60 and 65 feet in width, and at least 1/3 of the lots shall be greater than 70 feet in width. And for this particular development, there are 37 lots, which are 29% of the lots are between 60 and 65, and at least 62 or 49% are greater than the 70 feet in width. And therefore, they meet the ordinance requirements. All the lots meet or exceed the minimum requirements for the zoning district. As far as, because this is a planned single family, they are required to provide architectural elevations, not necessarily floor plans, but just the front architectural elevations to ensure that no more than 20% of the homes have the same exterior front elevation. So the applicant has provided 5 different renderings that represent the architectural style of homes to be built within this subdivision. The applicant has indicated they have access to approximately 50 different home plans and multiple exterior options. The homes will range in size from approximately 1,700 square feet to 3,000 square feet of finished area depending upon the home plan chosen. All of the homes are single-story ranch design with 2-car garages and 3 to 4 bedroom options. The homes will be a single level with 0 or minimal steps into the home, and the proposed homes will be slab-on-grade construction with no basements, although home buyers will have an option to add a storm shelter to their plans. The materials used on the exterior elevations of each home will consist of real full-size brick and natural full-size stone for a durable, essentially maintenance-free exterior. These are 4 of the options. This next slide shows the 5th rendering as an option. And then this lower picture here is actually an actual photo of one of the homes that the applicant has recently constructed in Shawnee off of 47th Terrace. They built 4 or 5 of them in the subdivision up in there. As far as landscaping, the applicant has provided a landscape plan for the open space tracts throughout the development. All plant sizes as indicated on the plan meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance. Additional landscaping as shown in a conceptual landscape plan will be provided along the walking trail intermingled with bioretention and rain garden basins to provide a nature walk along the walking trail. This particular plan here shows the landscape buffers that are along 75th Street and Clare Road, which are major streets, so they're providing a buffer strip between those major streets in the back of the lots in the subdivision. There's an open space tracks that run through the middle of the site that contain dry bottom detention areas, and then the walking trail with the bio detention / rain gardens and or open space, manicured open space. Over here is just kind of a rendering, conceptual detail of the landscaping around the bioretention basin and the walking trail. And then below is just kind of a conceptual rendering of what that area would look like. In addition to the landscape plan, additional landscaping will be provided as each individual lot is developed. So while the interior of this looks kind of bland or bare, I should say, as each home comes online, each home will be required to provide a certain number of street trees based on their lot frontage and then additional trees within their yard. So the interior part of it will fill in as the homes are built. The submitted landscape plan is preliminary in scope at this stage and will be further refined as part of the final, as part of the submittal for the final plat. The development is required to provide a minimum of 58,220 square feet of open space based on the difference in square feet between the sides of each lot, less than 9,000 square feet, and the actual lot size. It's just a provision in our code for us to calculate how much open space is to be provided. They were required to provide 58,220. The proposed plan provides approximately 231,545 square feet of open space. throughout 10 tracks. As I stated earlier, these tracks are made of the buffer strips along the major streets, the 2 dry bottom detention basins, and then the open space tracks through the middle of the property. In total, the open space tracks make up 13% of the entire development area. And then the applicant has also indicated the use of durable green and natural building materials to provide essentially a maintenance-free exterior for the life of the homes. The applicant had prepared a traffic study as part of this proposed development, and the study has analyzed the expected traffic operations for the intersection at 79th and Clare. The study also looked at site distance for several intersections in the area. And without getting into all the details of the traffic study, in summary, the existing road network is under capacity, and additional traffic generated by the development will have little impact on roadway level and service as a result. And then just as an overview, all the engineering components, including the streetlights, stormwater detention, stormwater treatment, grading, and land disturbance items have been reviewed and vetted out by city staff and have been determined to be adequate and acceptable for this stage of the development process. And just real quick, just so there's no misunderstanding, Clare Road, as stated earlier, the east side of Clare Road will be completed adjacent to this subdivision. It will be completed with full curb and gutter as a fully improved street. 75th Street along the north side will be extended as part of this, but as part of that construction, instead of doing a curb street and only doing half section improvements on their half, they are going to be developing a full width street that will be what Shawnee is looking to go to more out in western Shawnee is what we call a Green Street Initiative. And these will be, instead of being curb and gutter streets, they will actually be ditch line streets, but they will be full width pavement. So there'll be 12-foot wide traffic lanes on each side, 4-foot paved shoulders, ditch section, and then there'll be like a 10-foot trail on one side of the street. So that's something a little different. 75th Street will be improved to this new Green Street standard for the entire segment adjacent to the north side of this. That, move on to the recommendation. While this project is somewhat different from other single-family subdivisions in western Shawnee, the project does fit into the low-density residential range as defined by the future land use guide of the city's comprehensive plan. The project also provides a housing choice and option that is desired by many current and future residents. This includes single-story living, a master bedroom on the first floor, and durable and sustainable materials of brick and stone on all sides of the home. Other planned single-family zoning districts throughout the city have been successful and have held their value over time. Examples of these subdivisions, as I mentioned earlier in the staff report, and in light of this, staff is supportive of the concept in the planned single-family zoning as proposed. Staff recommends approval of Z-01-20-02, rezoning from AG agricultural to PSF planned single-family for the property generally located in the 7500 block of Clare Road, subject to the following condition. And that would be 1, approval of the governing body and publication of the rezoning ordinance. Staff also recommends approval of pre-plat -03-20-02 preliminary plat for Legacy Crossing subdivision, subject to the 9 conditions as listed within the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Is the applicant present? If you come forward and state your name and address, please, sir.
Let me see if I can do that. Yes, more than I can do.
Should be good.
Austin Chamberlain, Arise Homes, 8666 West 96th Street, Overland Park, Kansas. Thank you so much for this evening. I'll keep this brief, as I always try to do, but we really appreciate the staff and all of the work that we've done for many months on this project, and are excited to be here today to present to you. So this location, I'm sure most of you are probably fairly familiar with, Shawnee Mission, south of Shawnee Mission, north of 83rd, at about 75th and Gleason, or 79th and Gleason. This is, again, the acreage there. You can see 40 acres, and then the homeowner of this property lives there just to the east, where the other pond is there. He's in the audience today as well. So next is a photo of what the property is standing there at the north looking south. So if you're a developer and home builder like we are, you get really excited about this property because it just has some great utilities, roads, hedgerow of trees, and for our home style, it being flat is really great. So I like to have a little bit of fun doing these presentations. So it's kind of like finding a unicorn out on the property. But what's really also a big part of this story is the homeowner, Mr. Jim Bickelbaum, has owned this property for many years, been in Shawnee a long time, and so when we approached him about doing the community, he really wanted to know who we were and what we were doing. He thought it was important that he was living on the property to know what was going to go in the back 40 acres of his property. So when we met with him and talked with him, he was a great supporter of what we're doing here today. Okay, so Arise Homes, I'll keep our brief, but Matt and I, Matt's here in the audience as well, are owners of Arise Homes. We've been doing development and construction across Kansas City for many, many years. I went to school for architecture at the University of Colorado. Matt was an American Nazarene here and did business. And so where our single-family homes started out of was a relationship with a friend down in Texas. We met him and had the opportunity for him to say, hey, I would like to help do single-family homes a little bit different here in Kansas City, and I'd like to help you guys. He's over 52 in the nation, built over 10,000 homes, so it's about 1,700 a year. And so we get to choose from all of his plans and all of the systems that they've put in process for this. And I want to talk a little bit about that to show why we're a little different community here than other single-family communities. So let's talk details. That is not one of my job foremen, but I wish he was around every now and then. So real quickly, I'll talk about the home. So this is very important to us in this subdivision, that this is for every single home, regardless of the size and price of the homes in this community. We will be the sole developer and builder of this community, so we'll handle it from the beginning to the very end. We'll be the exclusive builder, and so the homes that we have designed and planned for this are all single-story, slab foundation, like Mark talked about. Real full brick and stone masonry all around all four sides, not just stuck on the front or a little bit here and there, but it's the complete entirety of the home. That's, again, for every single home in the subdivision. That provides that maintenance-free exterior that Mark kind of talked about. No painting, no maintenance, long-term maintenance that has to be done on these homes, very little if any. And so that's a big principle for us in the homes that we build. Now, what this also relates into is a really eco-friendly greenhouse. I'm sure probably most of you are familiar with your HERS rating and your system. Recently, the 2018 was adopted. That went from an 85 down to an 80. And we are well below that on all of our homes. And so this is actually one of our homes now that has just been recently had its testing on it. So how do we do that? We do that in a number of ways, and I'll flip through them real quick. So if you're familiar with manufactured trusses, no waste, they're all built here in the KC Metro that are delivered out to the job site, create a stronger, better roof. Wall systems are all purposely designed, have less wood, more insulation, a better, stronger wall into wall systems, with again, less waste, pre-cut, all show up to the job, ready to go. The other thing we use on our homes is a green zip board system. You might have seen this around town a little bit on higher end projects, and we make that standard on all of our homes. Typical home is a 2x4 with a thin piece of Tyvek and then a half-inch 4x8 sheet teal 111 type siding that's overlapped, caulked, painted. We don't have any of that for this sub sheathing. We put that waterproof already on there. We tape all the seams, we roll it all on, and then we have our full brick exterior that goes on to the outside of this. So this is lasting for many, many years with no maintenance. And then, of course, on the interior, we have all LED lighting, Energy Star appliances, and we don't limit solar or any other those types of technologies. We think those are all right on the heels, and we'll be here very soon. Typical interior as well as some of the other homes. All right, let's talk dirt. Community features. We worked very closely with staff and for many months on the plan for this, and we did it in a very specific way. So why it looks how it is and shaped, how it shaped out is something that we worked a lot on. 41 acres, like Mark talked about, 126 home sites, planned single family. And the reason for that planned single family is because of our specific design of all of our homes. They're designed a little differently than Kansas City. Kansas City, you see more of a square or wider home footprint. Ours are a little skinnier and longer and deeper on the lots. So our lots are the same as all of the other residential neighborhoods around, but the code allows for that skinnier home. That's why we're that planned single family and not an R1 or R2 or some of the others. This is common around Shawnee. Gleason Glen is one of them, and Mark did a great job in the report to point out all the other communities that are similar to this. The other thing that this really does is provides for less infrastructure. So not only do we, the homeowners, get to maintain low maintenance over the homes over the long haul, the city does as well. So less roads, less gutters, less pipe, less electrical, all of those things go into the design of the infrastructure for this home. So we get less infrastructure for the same amount of home, and that's a really big deal, as I'm sure you guys are finding on aging infrastructure. So most of the concerns, obviously, without a basement would be what you do for safe rooms. So we have pre-assembled safe rooms that actually are built down in Joplin after the tornadoes down there. You see a lot of slab homes all across the country, but in the South and in Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, a place where there's tornadoes all over. So this is the option that they have. It fits into the master closet or the garage. Quality-wise, of course, we want to bring a high quality. We kind of talked a lot about that, but this is some of the other styles, and we want to make sure it fits into the neighborhood around us. And so these are the homes. A couple of these homes are for sale, or maybe one of the homes is for sale in the neighborhood just to the east of us. West, sorry. And then home values, of course, is always a concern as we come into a neighborhood. What is it going to do to different home values? And with the same residential planning, on either sides of the streets, there's obviously aging neighborhoods, older neighborhoods, next to brand new neighborhoods with all sorts of different types of pricing in them. So this would be very, very standard for the city. And then the last concern really would be traffic. We want to make sure we've got the right traffic plan, engineered and designed. We don't, as owners, we don't have anything to do that. We leave it up to the professionals. We've got Brett here with Renaissance Consulting, and of course the city engineer that has reviewed all of this and has approved of the traffic report. So lastly, all the site features, again, spent many hours with staff and with our engineers to work on this. The road improvements we're going to bring into this area are going to be great for all the neighborhoods around. We have a new road on 75th and a larger road planned for Clare. We also are installing a 10-foot paved trail on the north side of the community. Shawnee is working on a paved trail and more trails into the city, so we wanted to support that and help any way we could. our green space, again, we have 425% additional green space than what's required. So we have a big emphasis on having a green community that's low to maintain and high quality. So that's part of this. Of course, that 425 doesn't have anything to do with all of the yards, front yards and rear yards, as that question's been asked, but this is just in addition to the separate tracks within the community. A 15-foot landscape buffer with a variety of trees and species will, of course, be around the two sides. And then that community walking trail and activities trail all throughout the community all connects up with our sidewalks, networks, and we're really excited how that kind of came to fruition with the city. We have these B&Ps that are now required in the city, most cities around the metro. And what they can be very unsightly if not attended to or not really put in a good place in the design of the community. So we worked with Reagan and some others to talk about, hey, how can we make this feature really nice and have it be an amenity and a place that you can use and access and be within the activities of the site. So we've just started that process. I'll be honest with you, it's it'll be something that will be worked out more at construction phase. But as we started the preliminary, we're going to make sure we have the right space reserved, and then we start to have a conscious effort as to how to make that rain garden be a really neat space there. So that's my presentation. Again, thank you. Thanks for staff and their staff report in favor of the project, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chamberlain, are you in agreement with staff recommendations?
Yes, sir.
Very fine, thank you. Does the commission have any questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Braley?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start off with questions for staff. So the construction of 75th Street and the new typical road section that the city is going to use, probably would like to have Mark talk a little bit about that and how we arrived at that and where we're going with that in Western Shawnee. And to add to that, the 10-foot path's going to be on the south side, is what it says, correct? Is there a rhyme or reason as to why we picked the south side of 75th Street versus the north side of 75th Street?
I don't recall the exact reasoning on the side of the location other than it was closer to this particular development, being the first in on the 75th Street section. We decided to put it on this side where it could actually be used as part of the subdivision for that network. And I believe it also has to do with further west.
All the right-of-way for this street improvement's coming from this developer because they don't control the property to the north. If you get on the north side, the grades are a lot more tricky. And whenever you're trying to do a 10-foot section with a ditch, you need a lot of space. And so the engineering of it basically put it on that side. The idea is that it will connect into the improvements that are done at Clare, and then with the street section itself, we're able to get a full width, 2-lane width improvement rather than curb and gutter and basically a half lane of roadway. So our thought is as development occurs around this subdivision, we'll have much better connectivity for people that not only live in this subdivision, but for other existing subdivisions out there to get to the Ontario and Collector Street system. I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, that answers the question. Again, where I'm kind of coming from, and I'm not saying I have an opinion on it. I was just wondering because I know that, backing up to 75th Street more towards K7, there's always been that discussion that at some point 75th Street was going to go all the way, through to Mize.
Yes.
At a minimum. And off of Mize is Mize Elementary, and again, for future use of kids, I would like to think that, that they would be on a path, so why would that path not be on the side closest to the school? Because I know that's a consideration with sidewalks from time to time.
That is a consideration. We do try to do that whenever possible, but I think in this situation, it was getting that trail to fit in that new section and not having the ability to take additional property on the north side of what would be 75th Street made it very challenging.
And if I may, we did pull that up and expand that in a staff meeting with staff, with our engineers, and we did look at the surrounding properties, because we really didn't have a preference north or south, and so we looked at other projects and planned routes and said the south would be the more natural place for it.
Okay.
We went through a whole study. I think we went up to the 5-mile radius looking at where streets, sidewalks, trails. There'll actually be some, probably not in my career, but there'll be some trail expansion even on some of the subdivisions that you may be seeing soon, that are outside of the normal street trail, street sidewalk system. So there's a broad connectivity plan that we've had in place for a long time, but we are scrambling a little bit with the new Green Street concept, but we think in the long term, the long run, the cost and savings, the increase in safety, and the decrease in maintenance and improvement in connectivity outweigh maybe having to do a mid-block crossing or something somewhere else to get on a trail that may be on the north side as development occurs. We're going to have to evaluate these as they come in, I guess is what I'm trying.
Well, and that's what I want to hear, that we do have a broader view. We're kind of in new territory with development out west. We have key components that we're going to be trying to connect, so I want to make sure we don't box ourselves in.
Right.
That we've got this great amenity in Hereford Park, and we're doing some things that are going to lock out any potential cool pedestrian access to the park, and maybe plan that in, because if this is kind of the start of something that's going to move north, who knows, or, okay.
Part of the great thinking, I think, in going this direction is that the way the design is, we're even having a 4-foot asphalt section that is actually striped. That's not dedicated as a bike lane, but it certainly makes it safer for a biker to travel on those roadways. And this is an interim solution. Now, the interim solution may be long-term in some people's eyes, but if we ever go to actually an expanded full curb and gutter street system out there, that asphalt will actually be able to be utilized for a true on-the-street, share-the-road bike path as well. So we've put a lot of thought into these new sections.
Okay. Next question.
Losing my voice.
I get confused about where Lenexa bumps up to us on, so 79th Street, is 79th Street in Shawnee, or is it in Lenexa?
For the most part, it's in Shawnee.
Okay, so coming out on Clare, when you hit 79th Street there, is that Shawnee? Clare and 79?
Yes, 79th to Clare is, yes.
Okay. All right. So then, I guess my next question would be 79th Street. It would seem that's going to be the service road for Clare. There's no planned improvements for 79th Street, is there?
No, it's not at this time.
Okay.
It's not on a CIP, and unless development occurs, there might be, if a subdivision were to come in, we might be looking at a Green Street type improvement on it, but no, there's no improvements.
Okay. So I'll just lump this all together. So 79th Street in Gleason, I think need, in my opinion, a little bit more attention from the city as far as getting a handle on what are the current traffic volumes for out west, 71st, Gleason, and 79th Street.
I'm sorry to say, Mr. Commissioner Braley, I think that might be a topic for another discussion, but simply because we're talking about this development in 75th and the Gleason Road. So bringing 71st and 72nd to it might not be appropriate right now, sir.
Well, I'll lump it into this then. This is the start of hopefully more development that's going to happen out there, and I'd rather we be proactive and get ahead of it rather than be behind the ball when we have developers come in, because we have citizens that are looking out for something's going to come in, roads haven't been approved, and if we can get ahead of it, it's less of a battle.
No,
Okay,
that's
I'll
a
stop
great
there.
comment.
Sorry about that, Mr. Commissioner. Okay, then I'll end with drainage. So this property, as I understand it, is going to drain into the drainage area that falls into Elmer's Pond. Is that correct? Is that kind of that direction?
We have their design engineer here. We can answer general engineering questions, but we're not.
But we do have the engineer here? Okay. Yeah, all right, so questions for you. Where does this property drain, and does it go into the Elmer's Pond sort of area and then spill into the creek that runs under the one-lane bridge?
I'm not familiar with the one-lane bridge.
Off of Gleason.
So the site is split into two watersheds. About 1/3 of it, the west third, drains to a storm system that was designed with Clare Road and then through the preserve at Clare Creek. And the eastern 2/3 of the site will drain northeast to Elmer's Pond.
Okay.
So that's why we have two basins to serve each of those watersheds.
So as I understand it, the outlet for Elmer's Pond feeds into the creek, if you keep going north on this drawing here, is what's going to feed into that creek. So are we comfortable that we're not going to have any additional impact and runoff that's going to create a problem at that constriction point at the one-lane bridge?
Yeah, our engineering staff worked with their engineering staff.
Okay.
And did pre versus post detention study, and they are providing on-site detention.
Okay.
And so, yes, the answer is yes.
Everything's
Those numbers will be refined slightly prior to construction, but as far as a preliminary development plan, preliminary plat, they've definitely supplied the amount of information that we need to be comfortable that they have the volume and the capacity to handle any flooding event.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the runoff from the basins, the discharge is slightly less than existing. We try to match it as close as we can, but err on the side of less than more.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Hearing no further questions, we will be going into a public hearing for the rezoning. Does anybody from the audience wish to weigh in on this matter? And I'll again read what I did earlier, and that is your comments are limited to only the matter under current consideration. We kindly ask that your comments be concise, that you are respectful of all parties. If your comments are the same as previous speakers, then please be brief, and we have not established a time limit and prefer not to. If you're not making any specific point or not concise, we will ask you to speed it up, and eventually may ask that you stop. If you just state your name and address, please, sir.
Keith Canat, 24704 West 77th Street. Live in Preserve of Clear Creek. My house basically backs up to this. Am I allowed to address planning commission?
Actually, you are addressing the planning commission. This is who you will be addressing.
And builder or
No.
anyone?
No. You're addressing us.
I think this project is all wrong. The density is way too high for what is out there now. There's been plenty of comparisons to Preserve of Clear Creek, some other Gleason Glen, and that's over by Walmart, Gray Oaks. And these are all 1,700 square foot minimum. Preserve of Clear Creek is 3,500. Lot sizes anywhere from 24,000 to 18,000. And I just think that the density is way too much. You do not have the infrastructure. It's beyond me that somebody doesn't know where the one-lane bridge is on Gleason. But yet they've done studies. I'm not sure how that works. But I think this project is all wrong just because of those three things. You don't have the infrastructure for the traffic, or I don't think it's slab on grade houses, and that area is not the thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nass. Would anyone else like to speak? Please, if you'd state your name and address, and I believe they'd like for you to sign legibly the little paper up there.
I'll do my best. My name is Sherry Van
You will be fine.
I live at 24630 West 79th Street. My property backs up on the south side at Clare and to the back of this property. I agree with Keith. This subdivision does not fit with anything we have out there. My main concern is what I'm going to have to look at
because I don't want to look at a bunch of backyards of little dinky houses that don't fit in our area. We have 2 stories, we have story and a half, we have reverses. This isn't fitting with us. We have mixed textures on the outside. I get the maintenance free, but it still doesn't fit with our area. And the traffic of however many this is cannot fit. Gleason cannot handle it, 79th Street cannot handle it. And not only that, 79th Street is the dividing. The north side of 79th is Shawnee, the south side is Lenexa. So Lenexa doesn't care what we do on our side. They're not going to help us make 79th Street feasible for all this traffic. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. I hate doing this. The passion, I hate this. But I just really wish you would consider all of us who are already there. The Gleason-Glen comparisons have got to stop. Nothing in this is anything like Gleason-Glen except people are going to live in a house. That's it. And I have lots of opinions, but I'll stop right now.
Ms. Van Leeuwen, you did quite nicely.
No, I didn't. I'm a mess.
Thank you. No, you did fine.
I don't think I can sign my name.
You state your name and address, please.
Ryan Sargent, I'm building on 24703 West 75th Place. It is the second lot down from the northernmost lot in Preserve Clear Creek. I'm building a $600,000+ house right out there, and it's in line with what else is in the neighborhood at Preserve Clear Creek. These things are half the price, half the size of what I'm building, and what currently exists in the Preserve Clear Creek. So to mimic what they said, it just doesn't match what's around. Additionally, they keep talking about Clare Road is going to be the access and 75th is going to be the access. You're talking about putting 120+ homes into this area. There's no access except 79th between Clare and Mize toward the schools. And you can't drive 2 cars down 79th Street between Clare and Mize. You have to pull up over a blind hill, and you have to move over if somebody's coming your direction. The houses there are forward houses. They're forward on the lots. You don't have a lot of room to expand that too. So now 79th is just going to be overrun by traffic if any of these people have kids, and it's the elementary school and the junior high, the middle school right there. 75th doesn't go through. 75th doesn't go anywhere except to Gleason, which can't support it because we have the bridge. So they're saying, oh, we're going to have Clare access and 75th access, but both of those don't give you access anywhere. 83rd is down Clare Road where you have to wait for another car to pass before you can pass. It doesn't make sense. The only way out of there to get anywhere is to go up 79th to Gleason, south to 83rd, and then over K7. That is the only viable 2-lane road there to support that kind of traffic. And I'm frustrated because my house closes in 2 months, and we just found out about this 2 months ago, and I'm just like, I'm upset because if this goes through, I'm going to lose money on my house. I don't plan on moving ever, but it's frustrating nonetheless. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Does anyone else care to speak on the matter?
Dennis Henderson, 25007 West 76th Street. I'm also going to express the concern about the traffic and the road conditions in that area. From what I understand, or you can clarify, is they've talked about finishing out the 75th, but that's only to the extent of their property. Until that road is completely built all the way through, it's not going to do any good. So the only access is out through the 79th and Clare, and if you've ever been there to that road, you've got a 45-degree angle on one side of that road. It is a treacherous intersection. That all of that subdivision plus the subdivisions around it are going to go out. To have a subdivision that size with only one exit point, I don't think is the right way to go. And 75th isn't going all the way through, so it's good to say that they're working on that, but it doesn't go all the way through to the end. The other comment is, look at some of the plot plans around it and look at what they proposed. To me, it looks like a trailer park. I mean, there's a lot of nice-looking houses. I'm sure they're sitting on the exterior in a slightly larger lots, but that whole middle section is going to have long, narrow houses in it, and it doesn't fit in the area.
I'm sure if you go to the other developers or other areas, they would not support this plan. So it was completely different from anything else surrounding that area, and there's a lot of good development out there. And this, like I said, is not gonna be looked favorable upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Does anybody else in the audience wish to weigh in on this matter? Seeing no one arise, and we would be in commission discussion. One of the interesting things is I do know where the one-lane bridge is on, what street is that on? Gleason? One-lane bridge on Gleason is, and so, it's interesting, but I'm not sure, I wish I was more familiar with some of the other parts of these streets you're talking about. But I know about Gleason, and I would hate to see a lot of traffic on Gleason. And I know we go through the community, the long-range plan, and we always hope that all of these streets are added on there, but it hasn't so far, so. It makes me skeptical without maybe our traffic engineer explaining to us how these streets will be able to have good access and not just to 75th Street, because quite frankly, going to that green type of road out there, I think is a fantastic idea, and the sooner we do it, the better. So it's a 10-foot wide, basically, path for walking and biking is fantastic, and I think the project, I like what he's doing. Myself, I don't care whether there's a basement or not. There isn't anything in anything we've done that says whether there's a basement or not a basement, should have any effect on what we're doing. There isn't any code that says we need basements. They typically do here, but likewise, he's adding safe rooms to all these houses. So I like the plan of that. I'm just concerned about some of the things that the people that spoke about on some of these roads and how well they can handle the traffic. Commissioner Manick?
Thank you, Chairman. I will say this, I thought the presentation by the applicant was very strong. The homes look very nice with the masonry exteriors and so forth. But I will have to agree with the comments from the citizens, if you will. When I was looking through this and I looked at the size of the lots, it did strike me very concerning. I think 6,100 square feet was the minimum, or 66, excuse me. So my question, I guess, is for staff. I mean, this is evidently fits into the zoning and the planning for that area. Is there a minimum, and how do we address these needs when these come up? I mean, 6,600 square feet for a lot is very small. I would have to concur.
Mark Silso for City Planning staff. I mean, we look at it as an overall density. We're looking at it being right in the middle of low-density residential, which is what the comprehensive plan calls for in this area. The city, both the Planning Commission and the City Council, have been looking at higher densities. That's kind of the trends that the development is going in. We have not had smaller lot sizes like this west of K7 typically, and it's up to the Planning Commission to decide if this is the direction they want to go. This is kind of the first one we're throwing out there. I think it's a solid plan. It's something that we don't have in the Johnson County or in this region much of, this type of home. But we're looking at it more as a low-density residential subdivision, single-family subdivision. You guys need to determine whether or not
I'm all for getting some density in the city. There's no doubt about it. And I apologize. The minimum size is 6,600 on this project. It's nearly 7,800 square feet. So, but neither here nor there. Concern, I don't know where that leads me on this ultimately, but it has that feeling. It is fairly a lot of houses in a small area. So,
Mr. Peterson.
like Commissioner Nemick and like I was taken aback by this. We aren't used to this, but the interesting thing about this is, I looked at houses like this in other areas of the country, in Oklahoma and in Texas, and my first concern was, we do have tornadoes here. And then there was the safe room. And so my age is showing, and it's not the mound of dirt that was outside the farm that I grew up on, which was, the root cellar. But the thing about it is that I'm an empty nester. I have kids that are recently out of college, and I'm looking for the home that I can move to that is master on the first floor, not huge, but has room for people to come visit me, hopefully children and grandchildren someday. But yet, I'm not dead yet. But I want to be in that home before I have to be in that home. It's a possible deal. This would be something that, along the lines, I do understand your concerns. Those are large lots. I love large lots. Having grown up on a farm, I someday like to not look at my neighbor when I walk outside. So I understand wanting to preserve that. So I see both sides of the issue. My question is this this is not a final. This is a rezoning. It's a preliminary. And as we talked about our issue right before this, things can change. The density may go lower, having heard you. So I'm just saying maybe we should open up our minds a little for alternatives. I'm really kind of tired of driving through subdivisions where they all look the same, is all I'm saying. So, thank you.
Commissioner Braley?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For me, I mean, a lot of my comments did kind of center around transportation and capacity and quality of roads. But as far as the development's concerned, I mean, four-sided architecture, huge fan of. I mean, you just don't see it. I mean, to me, that's a big quality statement that we can't ignore that's going to take place in these projects. I mean, that was all that was available to me when I bought the house that I live in, was basically one-sided, and then I had to go to the effort to kind of make it look like I have trim around the windows just to dress up the back sides of the house. So I applaud you for taking that next step with that. The other thing in a broader sense that I appreciate is I've always questioned staff on the sort of diversity in our housing availability, and it seems like this is going to be more of where we're headed based on the demand and need from the empty nesters. You still want the quality, the aesthetic, you appreciate it, but you don't want to have two stories. Maybe you can't get around on stairs. I'm dealing with that with my parents right now. So I almost see it as a threat to me selling my house because I don't have a master bed on the first floor. So I'm kind of okay with what you've proposed and the types of homes and how it's going to go in. I have no problem with good people living next to good people, independent of the density. So that's where I stand.
We're still in commission discussion. Commissioner Luna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as I read the proposal, my initial reaction was, wow, that's different. Not used to the slab home in Shawnee and a little bit smaller lots. But then as I kind of thought through that, a couple of things came to mind. There's, I'm sure, a certain market for this style of home, for a certain group that does not want a basement, that wants a nice, high-quality product, which certainly appears to be a very high-quality product from what I've seen of it. I'm not in the construction business, but certainly look nice. Also, as you look at the land use guide and everything that we have out there, seems to be in compliance. I didn't see any exceptions with the plan that needed to be addressed, or any zoning exceptions, so I'm not sure what any basis would be to not move forward with it, other than somebody may not like it, which is not a valid reason.
I'll add one comment on the transportation that does concern me, and it sincerely does, and that is things get real simple up here sometimes, and that is if there are people out there, then the city doesn't have the ability to fix roads out there. So this project that looks very nice to me, it's different housing than we're used to out there, but there's nothing about it I can find that's wrong with it, other than I wish there was better, shall we call it, streets and that out there. But until we add more people out there, that is what will really push the city into moving forward on some of these projects out there too, so. Not sure I like it, but I think it's the best thing. Any further discussion with the commission, or would someone care to make a motion? In this instance, two motions, one for zoning and one for pre-plat. And you can make a motion to approve, to disapprove, to table.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Commissioner Smith?
Move we approve Z0120-02, Legacy Crossing, 7500 block of Clare Road, subject to the conditions listed on the staff report.
Is there a second? Commissioner Peterson?
I second the motion.
The motion is second for approval of rezoning Z012002, Legacy Crossing at the 7500 block of Clare Road. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. That leaves us with the pre-plat. Commissioner Braley?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve pre-plat 03-20-02 preliminary plat for Legacy Crossing subdivision, subject to the following staff's conditions.
Is there a second? Commissioner Roth?
A second.
Motion is second for approval of pre-plat 03-2002 Legacy Crossing at the 7500 block of Clare Road, preliminary plat. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. That moves us to other business. Does the staff have any business for the commissioners?
We have no other business tonight.
Business for the staff.
Is Stephanie your proofreader?
So at this point in time, then, when someone care to make a motion for adjournment? I move for adjournment. Commissioner Willoughby? I move for adjournment. Is there a second? Commissioner Bingham? Motion is second to adjourn this meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
From ADJOURNMENT. Be back at work full time.
Sweet.
Wonderful.
Angie,
We like that good news.
She's